Welcome, Fighting Irish fans, to the Notre Dame Recruiting Insider video, which we will put out every week, breaking down recruits we saw from the road and other notable items in the world of Notre Dame football recruiting. Before we dive into the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up if you like what you see, subscribe to our channel for more content, and make sure to go to blueandgold.com for all coverage of Notre Dame athletics. I'm Mike Singer, he's Tyler Horka. We are both on the road this past weekend, seeing some big-time Notre Dame targets in the 2023 class. Drayk, Bowen, in-state linebacker, the number 2 outside linebacker in the country. So let's start there, Tyler. What were your overall impressions of seeing Drayk Bowen in person again? Big-time linebacker target for Notre Dame in the 2023 class.
Yeah, I think the first thing that jumped out to me right away is just how ready physically this kid looks. I mean, his dad told me that just a couple months ago he had a mouth surgery and he was down around 200 pounds. He's back up to 215 pounds and he looks every bit of 215 pounds. He was going up against one of Indiana's top teams, not just in its specific division, but in the entire state. I think Maryville is a top 10 team in the state of Indiana overall. So you'd think that there'd be a lot of really good athletes on that team, and they did have a lot. Kenneth Grant is one that kind of jumps out right away. 345-pound defensive tackle, played a little bit of offensive line too. Obviously, a guy like that jumps out to you, but from the rest of the athletes, anyone that was there on the field from either side, Drayk Bowen clearly fits the mold of a kid who's going to play Division I football at the next level. When I walked up, he was punting the ball. He took some handoffs and warm-ups, gave some handoffs and warm-ups on some read options. You can clearly tell that this kid is one of the best athletes on the field and he can do it all. And then once it got to the game, he kind of did that as well.
So you mentioned warming up at some different positions. Let's talk about the game specifically. What all positions did he end up playing? How was his performance?
Yeah, I know Notre Dame is recruiting him, and everybody else is recruiting him as an outside linebacker, and he played pretty much every defensive snap there. There were some, breathers, obviously, maybe a series or two that he came out, but every time he was on the field defensively, he was lined up as an outside linebacker. And Maryville kind of, game planned away from that. They ran the ball to the other side. They threw the ball to the other side. I would have liked to have been able to see more from Drayk Bowen defensively, just because that's what Notre Dame is recruiting him as. But really, it was offensively where Drayk Bowen did most of his damage on the night. He was the team's starting tailback. Very first snap that Andrian was out there on offense, he was lined up behind the quarterback, took a carry on the very first play of the game. I think he ultimately had 13 carries for 63 yards. His biggest carry of which was a 19-yard touchdown. So that just kind of goes back to what I was talking about. Athletically, he fits the bill. Nobody tackled him on the first try. It took 2 or 3 Maryville guys to try to bring him down. He ran the ball hard, and when that does go back to the defensive end of the field, I think that's going to bode well for him. And that he's making all these tacklers miss. He's bringing these tacklers down. So when it gets time for him to come up and make a tackle, I think he's pretty prepared to do that.
As far as his recruiting process goes, he has a top 5 list of Auburn, Clemson, LSU, Notre Dame, and Indiana. I've got a FutureCast pick in for him to land at Notre Dame. I feel like most folks feel like the Fighting Irish is the team to beat for him. In talking to people there and talking to Drayk yourself, is that the impression you got? Like, what can you kind of share about his recruiting process and where Notre Dame stands in it?
Just talking to Drayk after the game, it seems like he's very excited about the possibilities that Notre Dame would offer him. He mentioned 3 things being really big to him: football, academics, and also baseball as well. And at this point in time, Notre Dame can really offer 3 really good things in all of those areas. Obviously, the football program speaks for itself and has for the entire existence of the program. But the baseball program is one that's kind of on the rise under Link Jarrett, and he's actually been talking to one of Link Jarrett's assistant coaches, Rich Wallace, for the better part of a year and a half now. His relationship with the baseball program stems back longer than he's been talking to Marcus Freeman. Obviously, Marcus Freeman's only been here for less than a year. So I just think all those things coming together for him, Notre Dame seems like a pretty good spot for him to land. Speaking with people close to him as well, I think they agree that that would be the case as well. All right, Mike, obviously you were on the road as well, seeing a really big time recruit yourself. What did you see from the number 1 running back recruit in the country, Justice Haynes?
I'll be honest with you, Tyler. What I was expecting to see was like this big Justice Haynes show. Like he was just going to run up and down the field. This team that they were playing against, Woodland and Stockbridge, Georgia, hadn't even heard of them before, and I live near like Stockbridge, Georgia. So I was expecting just this monster performance, but I think it was the second drive of the game. Haynes got dinged up with an ankle injury. So instead of, again, him just, running for 250 yards, it was more of a grinded out game. Haynes is about 5'10", 195 pounds. So, he's not and that's what he's listed at. You never know. Playing weight right now, what is he? Is he 185 pounds? So he's not this big, massive running back. So you saw the toughness of Justice Haynes. You saw him running for just like a 3-yard gain, and he's just getting smacked around on every single tackle. Like Bowen, he also didn't go down much on that first contact, but it seemed like every time he was getting hit, it was a big blow. Like the kid just took a beating. Final stats he was attributed with: 26 carries, 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns. When I left the stadium, I thought he ran for like 85 or 90. It was just kind of this progression of yards he just kept picking up. It's 5 yards here, 7 yards there, 8 yards there. Broke a couple as well, but again, with that ankle being dinged up, didn't break that 60, 70-yard run. And then his second touchdown run, he actually fumbled at the goal line, and then his offensive lineman recovered. I wasn't sure if they were going to give him the touchdown or give it to the offensive lineman. They gave it to Haynes. All in all, strong performance despite being dinged up by that ankle injury. I certainly want to see him again at full strength.
All right, Mike, I know there's a current player on Notre Dame's roster that you would compare Justice Haynes to. Who is that and why?
It's just kind of easy to give someone like a name like Chris Tyree, just to kind of, because Notre Dame fans know Chris Tyree. They know they know his game, they know his skill set, they know his size and stature. So I'm kind of comparing Haynes to Tyree in that their body type is similar, certainly in height, both around 5'9", 5'10". At this point of Tyree's high school career, he was probably about 175, 180 pounds. Haynes is closer to 200. So I think Justice Haynes is a bigger, better in between the tackles runner than Tyree, but there's just no debate on the speed. Like Tyree, just a track star. Haynes has speed, and I think Haynes might be again at this point in their high school careers as just juniors. Remembering Chris Tyree a few years ago, I think that Haynes is the more complete back, kind of like a Kyron Williams, to be honest with you. So maybe that's even the better comp. But Tyree with that speed. It is just different. I can't speak to Kyron Williams when he was a recruit because I didn't cover Notre Dame at the time, but that's kind of where I'm looking at for comparison's sake.
No, a lot of people wouldn't say that Chris Tyree is a 30 carry, 150-yard type of guy, but who knows? Maybe that's in his future at Notre Dame. You mentioned that you also got to speak with Haynes and his father after the game. Where do things stand with Haynes' recruitment, and where does Notre Dame stand in all of that too?
Folks, make sure you go to blueandgold.com. Check out the Gold Standard. That's where I detailed my conversation with Ron Haynes, his father, who played at Georgia and with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also, some other nuggets potentially visit being set up. So, of course, go there. But yeah, he's looking to come to Notre Dame in the fall. Also, going to look at some other schools. In the Gold Standard wrote about there's about 4 teams who I feel like are sticking out the most for Haynes. And I'll say that Notre Dame is definitely one of them. Lance Taylor's done a phenomenal job in this recruitment. Haynes had a great visit in June, wants to get back already. That weekly, maybe even sometimes everyday communication with Taylor has just been going very well. And I think you got to give Georgia the edge in Haynes recruitment. It's the in-state school. Again, his father played there. Clemson. Anytime Clemson is going after a kid in the South, they're just tough to beat. And then Ohio State's another school really involved. Alabama, LSU, a bunch of schools pushing for him. And think he wants to get back to some of those schools. But like Notre Dame, like with Bowen, there's these kids like that want high-level football, high-level academics. That Notre Dame fits that. And I'll also add, with a lot of players whose their fathers played in the NFL, Notre Dame does well in those recruitments. Because those guys know what life after football is like because they went through it. That would be the same with Ron Haynes, who's done very well for himself after his playing career in the NFL. So I think that's part of why Notre Dame's so highly up there for Justice Haynes. Got a couple other items I wanted to hit on before we end today's video. A matchup here at the top right of the screen. This is wide receiver CJ Williams, cornerback Jaden Mickey. Both players are committed to Notre Dame in the 2022 class. They went head-to-head in a scrimmage this past weekend. On this play, locked up, and look, man coverage, the video quality is not the best. You're going to see this ball get thrown up to CJ Williams with some really good physical coverage by Jaden Mickey. Watch this one more time. Pause it right there. That is, again, physical coverage by Mickey, but doing a great job on the bigger-bodied receiver. And then we'll watch one that CJ Williams got the better of Mickey. A beautiful ball here thrown by Mater Dei's quarterback. You can barely even see it, but that one somehow snuck into CJ Williams' breadbasket, and he was able to make the catch. That is just what CJ Williams does so well. He's covered, but I mean, wow, just snagging that pass in tight coverage. That's what CJ Williams does. Maybe Notre Dame's least talked about commitment in the 2022 class is Ashton Craig. You actually see him lining up here. This is actually tight end, and he is going to absolutely drive number 45 there on the opposing team into the ground. So our first look at Craig in his senior season. Now move over to the right side of the line. I don't think he's playing the greatest competition here in Southeast Indiana in the Cincinnati suburbs. But yeah, Craig, again, under the radar kind of guy, doesn't have a ton of national attention, but physical football player. Oh wow, wow, that's pancaking two guys at one time. You don't see that a ton, but he's playing on the outside here. But Notre Dame projects him as an interior football player. He's big, he's nasty. Reminds me some of Pat Coogan last year, and here's we'll show a clip of Craig here on defense. Reminds me of Pat Coogan last year. Played on the outside, but definitely someone who Notre Dame projects on the inside. That's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you hit the thumbs up if you like what you see. Let us know what you thought about the video in the comments. Make sure to go to blueandgold.com for all your football coverage.